I want to thank every single one of my subscribers for sending in their stories. If you have your own personal story, whether it be paranormal, let's not meet, or in this case, unexplainable, send an email to horrorstudio1@gmail.com. So, without further ado, let's grab a blanket, turn off your lights. From Skinwalkers to Fleshgaits to time lapses, 5 true scary, unexplainable stories by subscribers. I'm a psychic medium. Hello. I'm a longtime subscriber and I've contemplated sending in my strange stories in for a while, as it's generally not your typical story. I know this isn't something you usually talk about, but it's paranormal in a way. If you have any questions, feel free to email me back. I also understand if you don't want to use this because of the controversy around it, but I do hope you end up reading it at some point. Thank you so much for making videos. Hello, I'm Jay. Here's a bit of my backstory. I'm going to start this out by saying, I know I'm going to have a lot of skepticism over this, but I figured why the hell not? Anyways, I'm a psychic, medium, clairvoyant, or whatever else you'd like to call it. Basically, I talk to actual dead things. Yes, things. I've seen and communicated with animals, non-human spirits, and such as well. Unfortunately, there are far too many scammers that leave a bad reputation of people like me that leads to skepticism, overall rudeness, or even as far as harassment. Hence why hardly anyone knows of my abilities, but I digress. I'm 18 years old female, and I live in rural Kentucky if that's relevant. I've seen spirits for a long time, as long as I can remember. Even when I was a very young child, 4 years old is as young as I can vividly remember, but my parents have tons of stories from even younger that I can't remember completely. I would recollect very gruesome deaths in expansive detail that I otherwise had no way of knowing. You see, spirit likes to make me relive their deaths exactly how they felt, even down to the emotions they felt up to the months, sometimes years before they died. It gets excruciatingly painful at times. I very vividly remember being around 4 years old and reliving being gunned down by a Gatling gun in the Civil War. I described in great detail how it felt to be shot to my parents and thoroughly freaked them out. I've probably relived every which way to die. However, suicides are the absolute worst. They fill me with so much dread that I can't function at times. I even told my parents that my great-grandmother would die a week before she actually did, as well as my other grandmother. I know other various future events to be set in motion as well. So far, I've correctly identified when and how 3 people died, and I know of more in the future. The spirits have even told me the real truth about heaven, hell, and God. But again, I digress. That's a long story for another time. Sorry for going off on a bit of a tangent. Recently, I went to the Gates of Hell, Casey Cemetery in Kentucky, and if you know the area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 2 days before I went, I started experiencing unbearable neck pain. A young man that died from his neck being snapped was coming through. Now, I'm not entirely too sure of its validity, but the people I was with, who are very familiar with the cemetery, told me that there was a young man that hung himself from a deformed tree on the grounds after I told them about this young man approaching me. I also encountered many dark energies, entirely too many to count actually. There's said to be satanic rituals and sacrifices held in the surrounding woods, and that's definitely contributing to the negativity. I saw a couple black energies roaming around, which I don't think they noticed me. They were so dark, like a never-ending deep abyss of negativity and hate, and they honestly scared me shitless. I've only seen something similar twice in my life, once while I was in 3rd grade and saw them come into the classroom, and again at home I'm in now. So it's fair to say that not much scares me anymore, but these things freaked even me out. I believe that they were never actually human, although they could be possibly created by humans. I also encountered a young girl that I believe was murdered. She was around 6 or 7 years old and was very playful. She kept pulling my hair and giggling while saying my name. However, things got weird when she started making me smell human decay. Not so pleasant, I must say. Those were the few that really stuck out to me, but there were so many more. I wish I could have helped them in some way, but almost every grave there is nearly a century old. There's no one alive for me to deliver their messages to, and that had to be the hardest part for me. I also saw these little troll things, not Keemstar, that like to cause mischief. I think they're the source of the car and phone given accurate readings over anonymous chat sites, such as Omegle as an example, which usually trips people out. Oh, and if you ever feel like you're being watched, yet no one is around, chances are there is a spirit with you. Now, imagine being able to watch back. I'll leave it at that. Thanks for reading. Oh, and could I please remain anonymous? Jay is the name I go by on the internet, by the way. Thanks so much. Visit in the past. I grew up in a really small semi-village in the north of Sweden. People up here have been living with the nature as long as anyone can remember. But by that, never really been told there is no such things as ghosts and paranormal happenings. Almost everyone takes it as a natural thing. In the village I'm from, there is not many people, and our home was deep in the woods up a mountain at the end of the road, with several kilometers from the closest neighbors. Only one dirt road leading down to the village. We were very isolated, and not many people came this way if they were not visiting us. So, this event occurred one day, about 17 years ago. I was 15 years old, and on my way to school one foggy spring morning. As I had been traveling nearly 32 miles to get to school, I had to get up really early to reach the bus down the village. This particular morning, I had stepped out in the small open porch to wait for my father, who was going to drive me to the bus stop. Suddenly, I saw the most strange thing ever. Down the road, there was a field leading into the woods on the side. There was a thin morning fog on the field, but on the dirt road going straight to the left of the field, I saw like a thick, dark wall moving. My father had come out too, and later told me he tried to talk to me and wake me up without any success. During that time I stood there, I saw a huge reindeer raid passing down the road. I saw more than thousands of them running and grunting, clappering on the ground, with people screaming and dogs barking. I was stunned. When my father woke me up after 15 minutes of this, I was totally confused. Everything was gone. I ran down to the field to have a look. Not a single grass straw was touched. Later, my father revealed that for about 100 years, the reindeer herders actually went through that place with their reindeers. So, did I just have a glitch with the past? Or could it all have been a wakened dream? Potential Fleshgait or stalker. Okay, I'll say this. I'm a 20-year-old 6'4" built male, and I live in England, about 50 miles away from London in the boonies, and I've had a fair share of interesting encounters that I'll get to at another time. For the sake of anonymity, I'll refer to myself as Ross. The encounter that I'll be talking about in this email is the most interesting one. It was a warm summer evening in the town that I live in, and Halloween was about a month away in the summer of 2013. Me and a few of my friends, Laura, Bert, and Henry, decided to go and make use of our tents in the local field near a small woodland. This was like a rite of passage for all students who graduate from secondary school or high school in my town. We got to the site at around 6:30 to 7 and set our 3 tents up by about 7:10. As we wound down from a long day of studying and messing around like the rebellious students that we were, Bert left to go for a piss in the woods. Classic Bert, I said, as I glance over to my friends, who are both in agreement smirking with their typical joys of boring sitter from the parents' cabinets. Lauren then replied, giggling through her words, "Wouldn't have 'em any other way." As I glanced up to look over to see where Bart had gone, After waiting a few minutes to let the sitter sink in, I then see Bert sprinting towards our location of 3 small tents. We all stand up and, in slight shock, watch our friend barreling towards us. As we look behind him at the tree line, we noticed the dark figure stepping back into the trees. Henry and I probably got up staring at the tree line while Laura runs up to intercept him. Not know what to say to the creature moving back into the woods. By this time the sun is setting and the perfect harvest moon is overhead. After a few sips of cider and a brief 5 minutes, Bert glances up at us, standing over him looking worried. He then tells us that when he found the ideal place to piss, he said he heard a strange noise coming from deeper in the woods. He said it was the most guttural sound he'd ever heard. Standing no more than 10 feet away from him, he said he could smell horrid, putrid odor lingering in the air. And he saw a humanoid creature slowly rising from the ground. It was at this point he decided to, and I quote, "run like a bitch." Seeing the visible shocking in Bert's eyes, we decided to head home in the sinister orange moonlight. As I glanced back, I could still see the figure lingering at the foot of the woods, and I shouted "run" as we left the field, leaving nothing behind. I am fortunate enough to say that we didn't see any more of whatever that creepy humanoid being was, and gladly, I'm assured that my friends haven't either. India horror story. This happened to my mother's uncle in the 70s in India. I couldn't believe the story when my mom first told it to me, but after meeting her uncle a year before he passed away, my views changed. My mom told me this story at camping. She wrote this. My mother's uncle, who I'll just call Uncle for short, lived in a rural Indian village. Electricity was present, but unreliable, and the entire village basically became a pitch black once the sun went down. Uncle was a sharp, well-respected accountant. He'd ride his bike long distances to meet with clients. This one evening, he was riding back home from a neighboring village, and the path was particularly dark and desolate. As he was riding, he heard a voice calling out to him from behind. He knew there was no one else around, but this voice sounded like his daughter's. He knew this wasn't possible, because his daughter had died at age 5. Very scared, he pedaled faster and tried not to turn around. In Indian superstition, you shouldn't look back to hear voices of loved ones or friends calling you like this on a dark, lonely road, because it is said to be demonic entities trying to trick you to get your attention for some reason. Uncle looked back, and from that point, he was never the same again. He made it back home, but was deeply disturbed and mentally unstable for the remainder of his life. A once intelligent accountant was reduced to a dejected, mumbling mental case. He refused to talk about what he saw to anyone, including me when I met him. That look in his eyes when I met him freaks me out to this day. Gray Stalker. I apologize, as I know this is very long, but this issue has been going on for some time. I figure you might be interested, and maybe someone in YouTube land can come up with some ideas. I apologize ahead of time for any grammatical errors. I am from the South, and that'll probably show through my writing style. I used to write pretty often but stopped, and I've become pretty rusty. I'm a 20-year-old girl from a very small southern town on top of a mountain in Alabama, USA. The town where I live is in the deep south and is locally known for the supposed Battle of Kennemar Cove. This battle was apparently extremely small, mostly a feud between the local Cherokee and Choctaw tribes. Growing up, nothing really happened to me until I was around 17, when I met my now husband, Corey. Corey moved to the area when he was young and lived at the base of the mountain, close to where the battle occurred. Corey and his family own 17 acres of trees and mountains, mostly undiscovered, and has a collection of over 20 to 25 arrowheads. When we first met, we had the brilliant idea to go camping, and found a spot about a mile from the house in the dense woods. This was in the middle of summer, and Alabama is known for having coyotes, foxes, wildcats, etc. I would have given anything for it to be something so simple. That night, we fell asleep with the fire still burning. Later, I heard rustling in the trees. Originally, I did not think anything of it, since we have so many small critters. I rolled over to Corey and tried to fall back asleep when a large branch was thrown against the side of the tent. I woke, and Corey jumped up, who didn't believe me until a second branch crashed into the side of the tent, ripping the thin material. Corey, who was laughing before, suddenly fell silent as we peered out through the rip. What we saw outside terrified us. A tall but extremely skinny gray creature that looked similar to a dog with no tail was about 10 feet from the tent, standing on its hind legs. I say it looked like a dog, but it was more like a dog and deer mixture, as its legs were freakishly long. It was impossibly skinny and had to be at least 6 feet tall. I could vaguely see an orange-red shine from its eyes, similar to a cat or dog in the dark. When we saw it, Corey opened the zipper to the tent, and we noped out of there running for the house. I'll never understand why in the hell we chose a spot so far away from safety. When we went back in the morning to get our things, the tent was in ribbons, and we finally got to see the very large branch that the thing had thrown at the tent. I remember Corey telling me that it would make sense if there were monkeys in Alabama. Fast forward about 6 months, Corey and I were engaged. Corey's grandmother, who lives in a separate trailer on the property closer to the thick woods, came to me in confidence and told me about the exact same thing that we encountered, and that it was stalking outside her trailer. She could hear it scratching, sniffing, and letting out a now familiar shriek and scream at night. She said that it visited her in the past few months, and she always knew it was the same creature because it had a familiar smell. She described it as a mixture of rotten flesh and dead roses. She now refuses to smoke outside at night out of fear of seeing the thing. That same day, Corey and his friend R were in his bedroom, which faces the woods. R was alone in the room playing Xbox while Corey took a shower. R heard scratching outside on the window, and assuming it was the dog, went to open it to let him in. Moving the curtains, R saw the same black eyes with a reddish shine and screamed. The thing took off, and when he told Corey what happened, Corey just laughed and acknowledged that we had already seen it before. After that incident, we started to hear loud growling and screams similar to a loud wah outside at night when Corey would walk me out to leave. This became so common that Corey and I would cautiously open the door and listen for a few minutes before dashing out the door to the car, and I would watch as Corey would run back inside. We became absolutely terrified. I stopped being willing to walk inside by myself as I was so scared of whatever was out there. About a year after the original camping trip, in early summer, Corey and I bought a trailer we intended to renovate and put it on a portion of the land closer to the road. Around this time, we got a German Shepherd puppy, Clover, which we affectionately called our baby. Our little family stayed out in the gutted trailer many nights and became accustomed to hearing heavy footsteps walking around the area, an occasional heavy sniff against the thin tin of the trailer. The sides of the trailer were not sealed, making it easier to hear cars on the highway. Things were peaceful until that spring, when she was attacked. The night was like any other. Around sundown, we let Clover out to use the bathroom with the other dog when they started to bark like crazy. Suddenly, the barking stopped, and we heard the other dog run onto the porch in a panic and climb into Corey's window. Corey instantly got concerned and went outside to search for Clover. When he found her, I will spare details of her death, as it was pretty disgusting, and rest assured that there is no other way than any other dog or even a human could have done that to her. It is still hard for us to talk about it because she was so insanely loved, and things had calmed down so much that we never expected it. Clover was the first of many animals to be killed on the property. Since then, we have lost many chickens and have given up on keeping animals. It amazes us to this day that the other dog is still around, even after Clover's death. Within the first 4 years I've been with Corey, we have seen the thing on the side of the road at night twice. Each time we and several other cars turned around in the road to get a second look, but the thing was gone. We had passed no more than a minute to a minute and a half earlier. Upon calling the cops, they insisted that there was nothing, and there was nothing they could do. The sighting slowed down until this spring, when it seems like the thing has swapped from Corey to myself. In the past month alone, it has begun to talk and has even learned my name. I still live in town with my parents because the trailer is not done, and now it seems like the thing exclusively comes to me. I have seen it outside my window at night, near the street lamps. That is just about 50 feet down the road at a church. I have since been able to see its face better, and it looks so much like Clover, mixed with some sort of greyhound. I have heard it outside my window saying my name in a woman's voice. "Stay here," or something similar, and most recently, "Caitlin, let me in the frustrated voice of Corey. It only appears when I am alone. Just last week, my mom managed to see it in a bluff along the road coming from Corey's house to mine. My mom has no idea what has been happening to us, and I felt my blood turn cold when she explained that the thing was impossibly thin. I have no idea what is stalking me, and I don't know what to do to stop it. Corey says that it's been on the land since he moved there in 2001, and somehow I feel like it's connected to the arrowheads that he's been collecting throughout the years. I have since realized that the thing is active in spring, summer, and fall when the battle occurred, but inactive in winter when the rumored battle ended. I wonder if it has anything to do with that. I am now heavily pregnant with Corey and I's first child, and fear that somehow the thing knows. Will it be safe to move on to the land, or will it try to hurt our unborn daughter too? If anyone has any idea what this is or how to stop it, please help. I truly am scared that this thing has made a game out of stalking us and may try to hurt the baby.